Nischay, given the fact that we're experiencing a lot of advancements in space technology in the current scenario, but could you talk about where it all started?
Well, I think it started when the Soviets fought against the US during the Cold War, and I believe Soviets were the first one to send Yuri Gagarin into space. But USA immediately retaliated, and John F. Kennedy was the president at that time, and he fought back with 8 years of hard work during his Apollo 11 mission. Apollo 11 later became the I think it became the first spacecraft to send a person on moon.
Oh, and also, are you familiar with the story of Laika?
Yeah, the dog that got sent into space by Russia, present in Russia.
Okay, so what happened to Laika?
Laika actually, she was supposed to live 5 to 7 days, according to scientists. But guess how many did she go for?
10 maybe?
10 days.
Yeah.
The sad truth is, she died in 5 to 7 hours due to panic and overheat.
Oh, that's sad. But
Yeah.
was it planned for her to actually come back?
No, it was never planned for her to come back. It was like later researched in 2002, and this fact was brought up.
Oh, but that is actually sad. Although, yeah, even if we talk about India's step towards space, their exploration of space economy, so during the Cold War, since that was the time for all of the advancements that were taking place, India also thought that this is the right time to step in. So that is when ISRO was also created. So if we talk about ISRO's projects, so it started with Aryabhatta, that was launched with the assistance of Soviet Union. And then we moved on to projects like the SLV, which is the satellite launch vehicle. And then from then on, we had a lot of other missions. For example, if I talk about the very successful ones, so it started with, let's say, there was Chandrayaan 1 that was launched in 2008. Then we moved on to Chandrayaan 2, and finally, the very recent one is Chandrayaan 3. So, because of the successful launch of Chandrayaan 3, we are now recognized as a very successful lunar economy. So, what advantage does it give us is the fact that since that is one sphere where we have the upper hand, so foreign investors would be willing to put in direct investment that helps the private startups that we have.
Yeah, also I recently read that over 13 startups gained $2.5 billion in their shares post Chandrayaan success.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that now that we have monopoly, it solidifies the made in India brand that India has, and more investors would be attracted.
Yes, and especially if you talk about the public and private sector scene, especially with regards to space economy and India's step towards it. So recently there was the Indian space policy that was launched. So I think I'm not very up with whatever it has as the objectives, but Veddansh, are you familiar with the visuals?
So based on my research, the Indian space policy of 2023 aims to enable and encourage a flourishing commercial presence. So what basically ISRO wants, that they want to transition out of the existing practice of manufacturing,
Yeah.
and they want to focus on areas such as research and development.
I also heard that New Space India Limited, due to this policy, launched around 52 satellites and gained a revenue of $210 million just due to this new policy.
So is the new space policy beneficial in terms of creating new space startups? Is it promoting the private sector?
Yeah, privatization, like Pixel is already funded by Google.
Yeah.
So most startups, like after Chandrayaan, also more startups will be coming up and will be, in the long run, will be generating more jobs.
So, as you mentioned, Pixel. So I was reading about how Pixel, uses an AI model, and it predicts crop yields and disaster management. So, considering how agriculture accounts for 58% of people's, I would say, source of livelihood, do you think that? Don't you think that it's a great step for us?
Oh, yeah, it is. So, here, one major question that comes in is the debate about whether, as a country which already struggles with problems like poverty, which is something very real, so here, investing in space exploration is something which looks very superficial to a few people. But when things like this come up, that you're investing in a technology that helps farmers. So even though space is something which is very new and something very innovative, it still reaches the roots. So here let's talk about so there's one thing which is called asteroid mining. So if I give a hypothetical example of, let's say you get into asteroid mining and you find resources that can help the underprivileged communities that you have in the country. So this is something, it's this debate whether you should invest in poverty alleviation or space exploration. Here, these are not two different factors. In fact, these are two things which are very connected with each other. So yeah, when you talk about technologies like depicting what the climate will be like and then that helping farmers, so that is where the entire economy is connected through whatever advancements we're making in space technology.
Talking about economy and recently how Chandrayaan took place.
Yeah.
So we spent I think $75 million on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and you mentioned how poverty is all connected to this and how we can alleviate it through it.
Yeah.
So, but don't you think that $75 million is a big amount that can help in, uplifting people who are malnourished? Even yesterday I saw someone on the metro who was starving. He was asking for money.
Yeah.
So don't you think that we should rather focus on our
No, but-
human development index, because
Yeah.
India ranked I guess 120 something out of 130.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is that 75 million, if we consider it to be a big amount, let's look at the budget for Interstellar. It was literally $165 million. And even Adi Purish was, for example, $83 million. So I think Chandrayaan was very cost efficient, and Elon Musk also applauded India for that.
And when we talk about, so when you mentioned that there are people who are malnourished and are not getting the food, so but we're investing an amount as big as 75 million into something like Chandrayaan. So here, when we talk about poverty alleviation, you can't just go to people and give them money. If you can obviously do that, but if you go and give them the money to get what food they want, that is not a very efficient way of making the economy run by itself.
It creates a deadweight loss basically for the economy.
So
But
what
I
exactly
think
is deadweight loss?
deadweight loss is a procedure in which, when the government gives out subsidies, it is not able to capitalize that amount of money. The opportunity cost of not exploring space is very high.
Exactly. So here, when we invest into technologies like space exploration, here it helps the economy expand into very new arenas that helps out different people in the economy. You get new opportunities for employment. So if we talk about the long-term safety measures that we need to take as an economy to alleviate problems like poverty and hunger, I think this is something which would be more sustainable compared to giving this 75 million directly to people. So here, the utilization of money and the allocation of resources should be very efficient, which I personally believe is better when we invest it.
Well, the point
Here.
mainly is that currently in space there are only major big players, 4 big players:
Yeah.
the United States, Russia, China, and India. Okay, so the problem with Russia and China is, because of the geopolitical conditions of war, they are not able to launch more rockets at this moment. India, being close to the equator, is more cost efficient and fuel efficient. So it is easier to launch satellites. For example, they launched 107 satellites at once in 2017.
That's great.
Yeah. So what I personally believe is India would be great for outsourcing. Countries like Switzerland, United States themselves will invest in India to outsource their satellites, and private players like Airtel will also come into the game.
Yeah, so I read about how Indian missions are very cost efficient because we are focusing on indigenous production. We are trying to maximize utilization of resources, and we are trying to, because since again coming back to the point of poverty, we do have limited resources in comparison to the US. So I think that India is going to be a big player, as you mentioned, for outsourcing.
Here, when we talk about ISRO's cost efficiency, so we have the reasons for that is we are very aware of the fact that we're kind of low on funding compared to bodies like NASA, which is very well funded, which is also one of the reasons why there are not many ISRO and NASA collaborations, because ISRO focuses on very cost-efficient projects, whereas NASA has already carried out very huge projects like Apollo 11. Although there is one collaboration that is currently taking place between ISRO and NASA, that is NISAR. So that is about how we can, it focuses on agriculture and environmental change. So again, one place where they're trying to help out farmers by letting them know what the future predictions will be like for climate. Or that is also something which will help us take control of climate change, since we will have the information for that.
So you said how Indian missions are cost efficient. I was reading this article where they mentioned that even though the Indian missions are cost effective, they are for a shortened duration of time. So
Yeah.
wouldn't they collect less amount of data? And secondly, also there has been a debate with the scientific community that due to a lot of spending in space research, they're not able to get funding for other projects, maybe for curing diseases. So what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, my opinion is that currently the main motive of India is to get monopoly and solidify its status in the space
Yeah.
race. So I think with Chandrayaan 3 they were able to do that. And for the point that other scientific research communities, like space is a very fast growing economy. Like we are currently capturing like around 2% of its share, right? And we were aiming to get it to like 8% in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So we should invest more resources into space other than the sectors which are already on a constant, like they're not growing very fast. So space being a big potential, we should invest more in that.
And
What is your opinion, Priyanka?
so what I believe is, when you talk about investing in various sectors and that and investment in space economy affecting the investment in other sectors, I think this is also one place which is not two separate things. That is also connected. How? So when you invest in technologies that help you connect a lot of people, for example, satellite tech is something which increases communication. So here, when you invest in space technology, there is a lot of benefit that other sectors also get. So for example, if we talk about agriculture, or if we talk about remote sensing and disaster management, then even if we talk about education and upliftment of people,
Yeah.
so focusing on space exploration and focusing on helping people get that expertise on, so yeah, get that expertise so that they're able to contribute to it, that leads to upliftment of human capital. So here they get education, it also fosters innovation, and when people have the skill set to actually do something, you're able to act on breaking a poverty cycle, because you get something where people are able to contribute as individuals, and they also get the ways to earn. So yeah, and one more thing, there's also space tourism
Yeah.
that comes into the picture.
So who's currently focusing on space tourism in
Yes,
the
SpaceX. SpaceX basically became the first company to launch a rocket back to the Earth, because rockets were like, they used to cost like $2.5 billion and they were a one-time thing. So why would anyone care to invest in that? But with SpaceX, with Falcon 9 were able to relaunch it back to Earth. So that basically started the race for space tourism. And currently there are like players like Virgin Galactic and SpaceX which are sending people to space. Virgin Galactic's tickets cost like around $80,000 to like $4,500, whereas SpaceX sent like 4 people to the ISS, the International Space Station, and cost of one was being $74 million.
Wow.
So such a huge amount. So considering that there might be a future perspective in this space, would it be possible for the common folk to afford such amount? Would there be any chances of reduction in cost?
Yeah, I
Anything?
second that question.
Yeah, with time, after research and time, because Virgin Galactic, if they are able to like cut it down to 80,000,
Yeah.
I think in the long run it will come back to like 20 to 30,000, which can be manageable. And if we are moving to Mars, the government will also give out subsidies, I guess, because the poor people cannot afford it.
Yeah, I think with a lot of other parties stepping into this area of space tourism. So with an increase in the number of companies that will provide this service, it will also lead to decrease in the price that is currently there.
Who knows, maybe India will be the player who does that, because India's
Yeah.
Chandrayaan cost us $75 million
Yeah.
and cost us sending one person to space is $74 million. So India has shown growth in this. So I think India can be the player.
So are you thinking of in terms of the private sector, or do you think the government would step in?
The private sector. Because private sector currently, like Jeff Bezos' company Blue Origin, like Jeff Bezos commented that the day we start manufacturing in space is not very far. And since machines do not wear and tear in space, in the long run, it will be very cost effective. So I personally think the day is not far away. Our labels will read designed in California and made in space.
So there will be no depreciation of whatever machinery you
Yeah,
use.
no depreciation on any asset.
Wow. And when you talk about India's, so you were asking Nischay whether it will be the private sector or the public sector. So again, coming back to the Indian space policy, here there are different stakeholders that we need to consider. So there is the non-government entities, which are the startups. Then we have ISRO, we have InSpace, and then we have New Space India Limited. So here, what I believe the entire strategy is for the government to collaborate with these private entities. For example, here the main role that ISRO plays is to help out these startups in terms of whatever research and development that they have as breakthroughs. So I think it will be more on the collaborative side rather than just
But
two
I
different
think that
bodies.
ISRO won't be able to give funding since the projects already are so cost efficient.
Yeah.
So they have to cut back down on some aspects.
No, but what we are saying is that in the existing projects, see, the research would remain the same either way. The ISRO would be helping out private sectors by sharing their research.
Exactly.
No, but even if they share the resources, the cost of building something is very high.
But that is where the other bodies that other investing parties step in.
That's why I think the private sector will flourish more, because like Jeff Bezos also sells his share in Amazon every year to invest in Blue Origin. He thinks not only like 5 years into the future, 10 years into the future. He's thinking for the century, for the next century. And I think that private funding will help us get to space.
Talking about how Jeff Bezos is planning to invest in Mars or any other planet. So don't you think prevention is better than cure? Shouldn't we rather focus on preventing our environment from degradation, preserving life here rather than colonization of Mars? Is it even feasible?
Oh yeah, as an add-on to his question, what question I have is whether, since we talk about the possibility of moving to Mars in the future, do you think will that just be an option that we have, or will that be a necessity? So as a plan B, since we've not been doing a good job with preserving our environment.
I think it is absolutely an essential plan B, because like now that we are moving towards sustainable development.
Yeah.
But I think in the next centuries or so, we never know what is going to happen in the future. So keeping this option open is very important. Or maybe as I talked about manufacturing and asteroid mining, maybe Mars can be used as a place to get the resources and make Earth a better place. Because since we are already increasing in population a lot, the resources are limited. So space will provide us with the resources that will make Earth a better place for all. That is my opinion.
So I think this is where we reach towards the end of the podcast. So this is one question that we would like everybody to ponder upon. Do you think moving to Mars is something which is an option we have, or will that be a necessity? So thank you so much for tuning in, and please stay tuned for further podcasts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.